Hello Fantasy Faithfuls and welcome to the 6th team score prediction video of the year featuring the Minnesota Vikings. The players I'll be focusing on are Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Latavius Murray, Adam Thielen, Stefon Diggs, and Kyle Rudolph. As usual, we need to know how many targets and carries the players will have to share in 2018. To arrive at these numbers, I've analyzed the opponent's play trends from the last 2 years. The Vikings are playing a group of teams that give up very few rush attempts to opposing teams while making them throw a ton. Combining this with the team's own play trends, we get 422 rush attempts and 530 pass attempts. By analyzing the Vikings play calling from the last 3 years and adjusting for Kirk Cousins' skills, they will target their number one receiver with 23% of all targets, 19 to the second guy, and 18 to the number one tight end. The number one back usually has 58% of all carries, while the quarterback gets 7%.
Absolutely, third down and 9, and going to the end zone and caught for the touchdown, Vernon Davis.
Starting off with the quarterback as usual, Cousins will have 530 pass attempts and 31 rushing attempts. Breaking down his passing for his own projection, but also for everyone that catches the ball, we see a crazy amount of shorter passes, with the right side of the field getting the bulk of the load. There's been a lack of deep throws. It's too bad that there haven't been that many deep throws because he's one of the most accurate deep throwers in the entire league. He's well above league average in all deep zones, and furthermore, he's also extremely accurate in the shortest zones, being one of 8 quarterbacks with over 80% completion percentage in all short zones. His yards per completion in all zones are almost exactly league average, and it's one of the reasons he's yet to take a step further. He lacks elite yardage from his throws. If this is due to him placing the ball in a bad spot for his receivers or the receivers themselves, will be shown quickly in Minnesota. He throws slightly less touchdowns than the league with 4.7 TD rate. This should rise slightly with the Vikings, but probably not too much. He gets sacked on 6% of his dropbacks, which is not bad at all. Fun fact, Cousins only ended up as the 5th best fantasy quarterback last year due to Carson Wentz's injury and that he played in week 17. His one-game floor over the last 3 years have been 10.5 and his one-game ceiling 25.8, placing him 12th highest in floor and 7th in ceiling. From his own passing, the pass catcher's abilities, his rushing trends, the opponents, and sack trends, we arrive at a score projection. Cousins will score 182 points from his passing, 9 from rushing, 118 from touchdowns, and 284 in total.
Second longest play for the Vikings offense today. And now on first down, it's Cook. That's running room inside the 10 to the end zone. He dives. He's in. Touchdown, Dalvin Cook.
Next up is Dalvin Cook with 243 carries and 58 targets. Breaking down his rushing to 7 lanes, we see that 46% of all his carries goes to either side of the center and 18% goes outside the left tight end. His yards per carry are the highest when he runs outside the right tackle, which is also the place where Latavius Murray has produced the most since arriving in Minnesota. Since only 3% of Cook's runs has gone there, they need to amp up this lane to get most out of their backs. Fun fact, Dalvin Cook always gets you the first down. He averages 4 yards per carry when there is less than 3 yards to go for the first. He's very dependable and should be used on short yardage plays. His touchdown rate last year was 4.3%. Expect this to go down at least 0.3% to around 4. He saw very few targets last year, so we can't say too much about his receiving, more than he caught the ball more often than not and gained a decent amount of yards. The 13 yards is an outlier and came on 1 play. His one-game floor last year was 7.6, which is very good, but with a small sample size, we still can't say too much, and his one-game ceiling was 19.6. From his own rushing, receiving, the team's blocking abilities, Cousins' passing trends, and opponents in 2018, we have a Cook score projection, and lands as follows: 117 points from the ground, 32 from the air, 60 from touchdowns, and 209 in total.
Again, cover 2. Down the middle, caught Thielen. Thielen breaks the tackle inside the 20. Adams is the only guy. No, Thielen takes it for the touchdown. Wow!
The Vikings have 3 pass catchers that are interesting for us. I put Thielen as the number 1 receiver, but you can change it up if you think Diggs will be the number 1 target. From the Vikings market share, Thielen will get 123 targets, Diggs 101, and Rudolph 96. With the accuracy from Cousins and the player's own ability, I project Thielen to catch 85 balls, Diggs 71, and Rudolph 66. From these catches, Thielen almost reaches 1,000 yards with 995, Diggs gets close to him with 840, and Rudolph is 100 behind him with 734. All 3 of them would score a decent amount of touchdowns. Thielen is projected to score 6, Diggs 5, and Rudolph 5. Changing up, so Diggs is the number 1 guy. He will have Thielen's 123 targets, and Thielen gets 101. Diggs would catch more balls than Thielen, meaning that he fits better with Cousins' play trends. He would also get more yards, surpassing the 1,000-yard marker. The touchdowns would flip, so use these numbers if you believe Diggs is the number 1 receiver. Lastly, a final look at their fantasy points in relation to last year's fantasy stats. Cousins with his projection would have finished 5th again, so expect him to stay roughly the same. I would not mind drafting him at all. Dalvin Cook is a guy that is slowly creeping up my rankings, but I will not spend an early 2nd round pick on him. Thielen and Diggs are great options, but it's unclear who will be the number 1 target. The guy who wins out will be highly fantasy relevant, while the other one will only be good. Furthermore, you should draft Rudolph. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more weekly content. And as always, the spreadsheets are dark and full of terror.